Okay, this is the China Profile Objective 1, Part 2, about China's changing role in history. Now, most people, when they think of ancient China, the first thing that tends to come to mind is this, the Great Wall of China. And actually, the Great Wall was built over many dynasties that existed in China during its ancient times. You can see here, this is pretty impressive how far this expands back all the way into the background here. In some cases, people think around 1,400 miles. It's not too hard to see the Great Wall of China from space if you're really looking. But the bottom line here is that China's ancient history is about family dynasties, many different family dynasties, not one that built this wall or ruled China, but many. Now, that cycle of dynasties, most notably the Han Dynasty and the Qin Dynasty, was interrupted by these guys right here, the Mongols, sometime in the 1200s. The dates vary depending on what historians you talk to. But the Mongols, when they took China, really expanded the borders of their empire and were brutal in the process. As you can see here, the Mongol Empire borders extend all the way to what is today Western Russia, and also well into the modern-day Middle East. I mean, this is Saudi Arabia right here. So this would be modern-day Iraq and Iran, Afghanistan, those areas in this general region. So the Mongol Empire was pretty dominant for most of the 1200s until about 1368. And in 1368, that's when the Ming Dynasty recaptured China from the Mongols. The Han were now specifically in control. In the 1600s, the Qing Dynasty, that's Qing Dynasty, took over at that point, and they were powerful for a long time, but you're going to find out when we look more at the political and economic history of the country that their power is eventually diminished by Napoleon and officially ended in the 20th century when England, Germany, France, and Japan divide China up. These countries today are still referred to as the foreign devils by some people. Now, throughout their history, the Chinese were either totally ignored or totally exploited, one of the two. In 1911, though, the Chinese Republic, the Free Chinese Republic, formed under President Sun Yat-sen, which was basically seen as a rebellion against the foreign devils. Now, for that, of course, Sun Yat-sen is still remembered today as a great leader in Chinese history. Soon after, in the 1920s, this guy here, Chiang Kai-shek, assumes authority as president of China in the 1920s. Now, that lasted for quite a while, and actually, in 1949, this guy, Mao Zedong, who was a communist, established what he called the People's Republic of China. Now, he was once an outlaw who was fleeing Chiang Kai-shek, but once he took control of the country, things changed. With Mao now in power, Chiang Kai-shek flees to Formosa, as it was called then. Today it's called Taiwan, an island in the Pacific on the southeastern part of China. But it's a free republic, and for that reason, in Taiwan today, Chiang Kai-shek is still remembered with great reverence. Now, Mao, during his tenure, tried a couple of different things. Remember, Mao was a communist who was heavily influenced by the Soviet Union. But from 1949 to 1958, he allowed himself to be influenced by the Soviets. But from 1958 to 1966, he attempts something called the Great Leap Forward, in which he tries to move away from Soviet influence. You're going to find out later in Lesson 2 that this really doesn't accomplish a whole lot. From 1966 to 76, Mao tries something called the Cultural Revolution, which was designed to purify China. It emphasized labor and very limited education. He felt that education would divide up a country, so really the only things that were allowed to be taught were reading and writing. Professors were put to work in factories, etc., etc. Now, since that time, China has moved more toward modernization under this guy, Deng Xiaoping, and later leaders who also continued those philosophies of modernizing China. Today, China is still very underdeveloped in some areas, but is currently emerging as a major world power, especially economically, and they're very active in world affairs. The world, it seems like, is coming to China, and China is welcoming that, seeking outside investment. The Chinese today are still very steadfast communists, but steadily moving toward a capitalist economy. Currently, they're second in the world in GDP and also second in the world in purchasing power parity. So, China is going to be a force to be reckoned with for years to come. Okay, that's it for Objective 1, Part 2.